Welcome to Roots and Ruminants, your podcast for creative and innovative use of farm, pasture, and rangeland. We're going back to the basics of raising and grazing livestock, growing your own forage, and practical land use.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Roots and Ruminants podcast, and today we've got a guest from Princeton, Minnesota, Andy Walker with Walker Farms. And so Jared and I are really, we know Walker pretty well, Andy really well, just from our past, being college roommates together. We lived together in a house there. So Andy's got a cool operation, and he's going to talk a lot about the different things he got going on, the family operation there. So Andy, you want to give your introduction and where you're at and explain it to all of our listeners?
Sure, will do. Like just said, I'm Andy Walker. I run Walker Farms LLC, excuse me, with my brother George and my sister-in-law Annalise and my wife Becky, and then my parents kind of help out in between over here in central Minnesota. I'm going to call it East Central Minnesota area. We do direct-to-consumer pastured pork, pasture poultry, grass-finished, grass-fed beef, a little bit of lamb. We did turkeys at one point in time. We stopped doing turkeys. And then my mom also runs a little goat landscaping business that we kind of help her with. That she does most of it. We kind of help her a little bit here, moving goats and that kind of thing. But that's her her thing. That's kind of the rundown. And then we direct market everything, almost 100%, probably 99.9% of everything we grow. We direct market through Facebook. We're in one farmer's market. We do biweekly deliveries to the cities area. We're about 20 miles, about 20 minutes to 30 minutes to downtown St. Paul, Minneapolis. So that's in a nutshell what we got going on.
That's fantastic. And so I don't know if we want to jump into it right away, but at some point in the podcast, we do need to talk a little bit more about goat landscaping. Yeah. And maybe this could be a fourth option to your, graze it, harvest it, rent it. It could be a graze it, harvest it, rent it, or goat landscape it. You know what I mean?
How about when we play it, that you have to graze it with the landscaping goats?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the only option.
Well, you guys know about goats, though. They don't like all the short little leaves. They want tough stuff that's about, at their head level, and then
shrubs. Shrubby material.
So your location is pretty unique. Can you just describe the landscape, the soil types?
Well, the soil type around here, we farm. Walker Farms does not own any property. We rent everything that we run is all rented. Everything that we rent is pretty much blow sand. Very, very sandy. Like this year was pretty rough with the drought with no rain. But then you go literally, up to the dairy farm. Peter's place is 2 miles and it's heavy clay. You go all over the gamut around here. You go south of us a little bit, it gets a little bit rockier. But we're in blow sand. We call it, they call it the Anoka blow sand, sandburs, and you name it. So we want to keep something in that soil structure as long as we can, as much as we can, so it doesn't blow away.
Crazy.
But then we strategically, from a marketing standpoint, for the direct marketing, our population density is, like I said, we're 20 minutes to downtown, the edge of Minneapolis. We've got lots of people to grab from. So to sell stuff.
On below sand. Okay, so tell us about how are you, in addition to trying to have something growing all the time, managing below sand, does that make you more inclined to work harder than if you were in good black heavy dirt? I mean, your challenges, right? With the what you have, you probably can't just put seed in the ground and raise 200 bushel of corn like a lot of our listeners probably think of when it comes to Minnesota. Is that correct?
Oh no, we're around us. If you're getting on a dry year like this, you're doing 100 to 120 on blow sand, on sand, non-irrigated sand. That's good. that's a good crop for that year.
I think it's important for our
anything
listeners.
Over 150 is really, really good.
I understand that there's places in central Minnesota that have significant challenges. So we put your challenges from moisture and adaptability and crop rotation standpoint right with someone, right out of central South Dakota, North Dakota, right, Justin?
Yeah. I think that's really, really similar, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's actually probably, maybe it's not a benefit, but it whenever you have a challenge, it forces you to think a bit differently. And that your advantage there is living pretty close to the Twin Cities. You've got market there and taking advantage of poor quality soil and different terrain land. It forced you to diversify a bit. Do you see that with other farmers? Are your neighbors that diverse in their crop rotations too?
I would say we're probably the crazy ones around here. Sometimes I always like to say if you're doing something crazy, then maybe you're doing it right. If the neighbors are talking, well, what are you doing over there? If you're doing something right, then maybe you're doing it right. You're not following the herd of sheep, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But
Except for
now
the
there are a few
little.
people around here that are dabbling in some different types of rotations. And see, I try to get it we don't do a whole lot of row crop. We do about 40 acres of I attempted to do some rye soybeans this year, but that totally went on its face because we didn't get any rain at all. I ended up baling it all and making straw out of it for the most part. But I was trying to do two crops off of one field and leave that living root in there all the whole entire time. I think it'll work. It just happened Mother Nature didn't pan out this year for me.
Yeah.
But there are other guys definitely in the area that are trying some different things. And then we have a neighbor that had a field that he plowed. What did he do? He plowed it, he disked it, he field cultivated it, and this is blow sand. At least he went over it at least 6 times before he planted it. And you scratch your head.
All up and down the spectrum, for sure. So tell us about. So you said you do a little bit of lamb. We'll start with lamb, and then we'll get into the kind of the species that you do more of. You're definitely not following the sheep around there, but you are the people with the sheep, right? In your area.
We have some sheep, yeah, not as many as Peter, but we have some.
Okay.
Our herd was about 30 this year, and we ended up they all went a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
But that's pretty small. Our main focus is the pork and the beef right now. That's
Sure.
kind of been our market. It's weird selling sheep from a direct market. Either people like it or they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And then to find a butcher that'll actually do it is another hurdle
Yeah.
around here.
Sure. So when you did sell the sheep, did you get run through a butcher, or did you just sell them live?
No, we sold those. We ended up selling them live.
Yeah.
We didn't get enough pre-sales, so we ended up selling them all live to Rock Creek up
Okay.
north.
Okay. So tell us about how the pigs. How are you raising your pigs? When do you farrow, or do you buy feeder pigs? How do you raise pigs at the Walker Farm?
All right, so that's the one I know a lot about because that's kind of that's me. Um, we used to buy in all of our feeder pigs, and then about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, I started farrowing, and we farrow outside on pasture in huts, and then we farrow to finish. And I sell feeder pigs pretty much year round. I'm selling feeder pigs. Um, with way Mother Nature's worked, I got to trying to switch up some of our schedules and our breeding schedule, but I try to farrow two groups of five, and it works sometimes, it doesn't work. Mother Nature, I had some that got late bred, and when you farrow in central Minnesota in January outside, it's not. I'm changing some gears up with how we're doing some things. So we don't have access to any buildings, so everything we have is mobile. All of our stuff is mobile. All of our pens are mobile. Everything can be torn down and taken with us somewhere else. So it's been a struggle there. We're changing some things up there. I've got about 15 sows now that are going to be getting bred here for this fall or spring. It's all Berkshire Duroc cross breed. And then I'm pretty picky about my culling. If the sow doesn't meet what I want her to do, she's usually gone, and usually we can move a lot of ground product that way. So I don't know if that answered that question.
It does. Okay, so you're farrowing them out, and then finishing. You're selling some feeder pigs, and you're finishing some pigs too.
Yep, we
How many?
finish about 70 pigs a year for the farm, and then the rest of them I sell as feeder pigs, and that's all rotationally. We kind of pick, so we kind of work it together. We do bale grazing in the wintertime. Typically, we bale graze. Like last year, we bale grazed everything, and then wherever we bale graze is where I run the pigs over the next spring. So if you know anything about pigs, pigs are pretty. They can do some havoc on landscape. When they're small, it's not so bad. But you got to stay on top of moving them. Once they really start to rut, you need to move them to their next pat. You got to stay on top of moving them. They might be there for a week when they're small, but in about 2-3 weeks, you might be moving them 4 days then if they're they're really getting at it. But what's really nice is they go in where all that's trampled down hay was, and they just root it all up and help break it down even more. And then I go in and I usually broadcast, and that's something I'm working on, trying to figure out some good mixes to put down. Usually it's just whatever I have laying around. I'll go out about a day and a half or 2 days before I plan on moving the pigs. I go out and I just broadcast it and let the pigs kind of work that in, and then I move them to the next paddock. And man, does it come back nice, usually.
Yeah.
And are those usually annuals that you're planting back in there?
These last couple of years, it's been annuals. Like I said, a lot of times it's whatever we've got extra seed laying around. A lot of barley, a lot of rye, just because it's
Yeah.
usually you have a tote of it that you didn't use all of it, so you just throw it out there. I'd
Yeah.
like to start doing some more specific grazing, specific mixes for farrowing on, like putting out some pea, something that's got a good protein and get it out there and then farrow on it is my eventual goal.
So when you're finishing the pigs, do you have to supplement them with grain?
Yes, they are. All of our pigs are on full feed all the time.
How does explain that setup and what does that look like as far as the logistics of moving your mobile feeders, fences, all that stuff? How to paint that
So
picture?
our fences we use. You have to train your pigs. So they go into usually when I wean them, I put them into a training pen. So it's hog panel with. I just use re-rod as my posts, so you can move them pretty quick. It's hog panel and then a single strand electric wire. That's you have to make sure is very hot. You put the pigs out there for at least a week in there, and believe it or not, by that time, it's amazing what a pig will actually respect that little wire very and very good once they get trained to it. And then I take them out of that pen and I go to a single strand electric wire with poly netting. There's Pig Quick Fence from Premier. That's what I use, and I'll electrify both of those for probably the next 2 weeks, and then eventually I just go to the single strand wire with the poly, and I don't electrify the poly. I just electrify the single strand. And when you go to move those pigs, it's hilarious because they'll stop right at that fence where the wire was. They'll stop, but then once they figure out that hey, we're moving, and after a while they kind of go, okay, we're moving to a new. They don't even think they'll go right through it with the wire not there. It's pretty comical.
Huh.
And the sows are another story. Sows I've yet to really get those guys out on single. There's a guy that I follow that does 200 sows on pasture out in Pennsylvania, and he's keeping big sows in with a single strand electric wire, just the wire. I haven't yet ventured to that because we have lots of neighbors.
Lots of neighbors. So does the blow sand make it difficult to establish a ground? Do you have trouble with the connection? Drier soils. I know when it gets dry
Oh
here,
yes,
and
there are. When we first put fence up, when we first started this venture at my parents' place, we put fence up around that, and we put about what did we put out there? 10 head of cattle out there, and we couldn't get a good ground. I think we ended up putting down 14 ground rods.
Oh my goodness.
what?
Every single
Is it-
corner we put a ground rod in. It was so dry. Then we went over and we talked to an old timer around here, and he said, just go put your garden hose and stick it over where your ground rods are, and just let that sucker run for a couple days, get that ground wet, and then if once it made its connection, then it was fine. Then it was good. But yes, we do struggle with that. When it gets dry like it did this year, I even with the pig fence, trying to get a good ground is sometimes a struggle.
I think that's like a Guinness Book of World Record for ground rods on one fence.
I think it was.
14.
I want to say it was over 10. I know that because we went back and because then we don't really use that fence anymore. We're kind of piecemealing parts of it off of there, and we were looking for a ground. George's like, I'm gonna go buy some ground rods. I said, I think there's some out in the pasture still. So he went out. and was like, oh yeah, there's still some out here.
There should be 7 ground rods left. I think we've only taken 7
Yeah.
from that.
That is great.
Yeah,
That
we
is
ended up
great.
running the one ground rod up into the trees. We ran a separate line into the trees to try and get into some roots to try and get a good. Oh, it was a struggle for a bit.
So you ran a fence to different dirt to find roots to put a ground in.
Yep,
That's amazing.
that was
I was
7 years ago. It was another dry seven. What was
Yeah.
that 8 years ago? I think something like that.
Yeah. Huh. That's wild.
Up at our other
Okay.
rented ground, we don't have too bad. It's pretty low ground, so it's not as bad. But
Okay. So the pigs are out there. They're going through. They're breaking up the bale grazing areas. For sure, definitely understand how that works well. You're getting it seeded, and they're making enough hoof action to get it going. But then what you're seeding out there is essentially going to get grazed by the cattle, right?
Eventually,
What
yep.
so,
We'll either run the cattle back over that, or sometimes I'll run the pigs back over it again. It kind of depends on the year. We try to, this last year we tried to stockpile. We actually are part of a group that has grazing cattle out on the wildlife refuge. We have a
Mhm.
National Wildlife Refuge. Literally, our land that we rent is right up next to it, and there's like what's there 35,000 acres over there that my brother's in with a guy. So half of our herd, most of our herd, cattle wise, went out there this summer. So we were able to stockpile quite a bit this year, which is nice. That's where everybody is now. So they'll either go out there. We try to be, if it's, go back to your guys' graze it, rent, harvest it that you guys do. It just always amazes me is the flexibility or being able to look outside the box and, adapt to what you have for that year. And with what we're doing, we have enough tools and enough things we can grab from that we can try and make a educated decision. Maybe I don't want to say last minute, but you can make that decision and have different avenues to go and not stuck in just one way of doing it.
so the 35,000 acre wildlife refuge right next to you,
Yep.
primarily grass. Then I mean, do they have they always grazed it? Or are they starting to do more
No, they
grazing?
haven't always grazed it. They do a lot of burning. Actually, ironically enough, they were where they were going to start grazing this last spring. They went in and burned it and pretty much took away all the feed. And then they couldn't figure out why they didn't want to put cows in there. It's like, well, you burned everything. So yeah, it's they're trying to mimic. They're trying to restore it to like a Silva type pasture area with big oak trees. And I mean, since I was a kid, they've been burning it every year. And then in the last 10 years, they started working with cattle. They had a guy come out and he just threw his cattle out there. No, not any kind of grazing. Um, no temp fence, no intensive grazing stuff. Now the group that's out there now that my brother's a part of, they go out there every day and they're putting up a mile, 2 mile long fence, single strand wire, trying to give them a paddock for the day or 2 days, and moving them kind of like, the buffalo used to do.
Awesome.
And they're seeing a lot of good results out there now. It's just pretty cool.
Do you have any, if you don't mind sharing, or if you know what your brother or what the farm would end up paying for that lease, like a per head per day basis to graze in the refuge?
I do not know that off the top of my head. You guys could have him on a podcast. He would
Yeah.
definitely go down that road.
We'll do a we'll do a follow up here at some point. We'll call this
Oh,
the Ritz and Monogastric podcast, and we'll get the Ritz
and
It
I
guys
say,
on
is,
too.
yeah.
I told him I was going to be on here. I'm like, well, I don't really do it the ruminants. I'm more of the.
You're
So
prepping. You're
let's.
prepping the ground. You're taking care. You're cleaning up after the ruminants, right?
That's
Yeah.
true. Fits
Same
in.
with the chickens. Oh,
Yeah, let's go to the chickens now. The other monogastric. Let's talk about them and their role. Do you graze them in some sort of rotation as well with
they
pigs, cows? How does it fit?
they kind of go. We use those. I think of those as more of our nitrogen providers. So we pick out every spring. We kind of because so the chickens are in a 14 by 30 hoop building that's on skids. So they get moved every day. Every morning they get moved. They get fed and they get moved. They get X amount of pounds of feed every day, and then they get moved 30 feet every day. So you can't really, you know, we just kind of pick an area of where we're renting. We're like, okay, we're going to do this side of Thompson's this year, and then they go down and they come back. You can only go so far with those things. They don't turn very good, but they move every day. And then we pick the low spots. So where we rent, they built a road in there, and next to the road, these last couple of years, we've been running them really hard on the edges where they took the dirt out to build the road. And it's when you get up with the drone and you don't see it so much in a year like this when it's dry, but on a wet year, it is really cool. You can see exactly where those tractors were, and you see the greenness come. It's just amazing. I figured it out something around the lines of 250 pounds of N a day going down in a spot.
Wow.
That was rough calculations one day, and that was like, wow. So that really gets stuff going. And we'll do the same thing there. If we've got extra seed laying around, we'll throw that out after them and try to reseed and then graze the cattle behind them.
Hmm.
Are these all broilers? Are they laying hens?
All
Talk to
broilers.
you. All broilers. Okay.
Yep, all broilers. This
So you
last
buy
year
them in.
we did 1,000 this last year. We buy them in as day old chicks. They go into a brooder for 2 weeks and then we put them out on pasture. And it's fun. So that's the same thing. They learn the process of moving. And there's some video. I've got some videos I think on our Facebook. You go out there and if you go to feed, they all run towards the front of the tractor because they know that they're going to get moved. And this year there was a crap load of grasshoppers, and you could sit there for hours watching them chase grasshoppers. It's hilarious. I mean,
Very entertaining.
little
Do
mini
you,
velociraptors.
are you
Yeah.
doing are you just doing regular meat breed type white broilers, or are you doing anything special from a breeding
Nothing
standpoint?
special.
Yep.
Just white, regular white Cornish cross broilers.
Yep. So two
We
weeks in the brooder and then out to pasture and feed, and then how many days are they out there when they go to slaughter?
it's about 7 to 8 weeks depending. We do all of our butchering on farm. So it's 7 to 8 weeks. Sometimes it's 8.5, depending on when our butcher schedule. We can get our crew together. It's usually on the weekend, so sometimes it might be a little bit longer on there. But we do groups of 250 in the pens, and then we'll pick and choose when we're loading them out. If we got one that's a couple, maybe there's a couple too small, we'll throw those in another one. We'll go to another pen and grab a bigger one. And we try to dress them out. We try to get them around 5 pounds dressed is what we're shooting for.
Okay. And what
What
would
does
you
your
go ahead.
Go for it.
what does your butchering process look like? What does
Um,
each roll look like?
that has come a long ways since we started. I did 60 birds with Peter when I first moved back here, and it took us almost 4.5 hours to just butcher them. Now we can do 250 birds butchered, packaged, and we start at 6 in the morning and we're done by noon, usually. We've come a long way. uh,
Yeah, a lot of
the
that
the
is just
process. What's that?
a lot of it is learning. Yeah, we still do butchering like chickens once a year at my mom's place. She has, but we don't do very many, so we don't ever pick up the pace, right? We just kind of do it the way we've always done it. But I'd imagine if, yeah, out of
We have an
necessity.
automatic scalder and a plucker. That automatic scalder made a big difference when we brought that in,
Yeah.
and you can move them pretty quick. My brother primarily does the eviscerating or does the killing, and then I do the. We have another guy that does the plucking and the feet, and then my dad and I usually do the eviscerate. I can eviscerate a bird pretty darn fast when you do that many, and then my sister-in-law and mom take care of the packaging side, and we have a crew of guys that come, and we don't know why they keep coming, but they keep coming, so we keep doing it. But
What
go
what do
ahead.
you like to get out of a bird? What do you when you sell those birds into the farmers market into your? I mean, what do you hope for from a market standpoint to sell those birds for per head or a 5 pound bird?
So what we do, anything over 5 pounds gets cut up into pieces because you can get
Okay.
we do boneless, skinless breasts, legs, thighs, um, and then wings. Anything over 5 gets cut up because you usually get enough breast meat off of that, and I think we're at don't quote me on this. It's like $9 a pound for breast meat, and then our whole birds are 4.25 or $5 a pound is what we're at for a whole bird. So anything
Sure.
under, and then you get your weird ones that are broken legs and all that kind of stuff that they
Yeah.
kind of melge into that. But we make your money pretty much off of the breasts and the white meat, which is, if you ask me, that's probably the worst part to eat because I'm more of a thigh and leg guy. But we can't sell legs. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Do
My
you think
last
people that were more interested in, like farm raised meat would have a more a palate, right? That would be more inclined to like want dark meat, right?
It's
Is that
amazing that
crazy?
we get boneless skin. We'll be out of boneless, skinless breasts by, well, usually by the
Yeah.
first of the year, if not too far after. They're gone, and then we're sitting on legs and wings and thighs, and
More
which
for
is
more
weird.
for
I think
you.
they taste better.
Yeah, more
yeah.
for you and your family, huh?
Yeah.
Sell the
Well,
breast
and the
meat.
way we do it, they got more inner. They have it's interesting. You take a store bought bird, and one of our birds, and we're not the only ones that do birds this way. There's tons of people out there that do birds this way. I mean, it's the Joel Salatin way of kind of doing birds. That's kind of what got us into this. We just have a bigger pen. We move instead of moving 50 birds with a little pen at one time. We moved 250 at one shot. But you take a store-bought one and it's white, the fat's white. Our fat's like nice yellow. It's got a lot more fat in it when you cook it. It's, yeah, hands down better. But
My last chicken butchering experience was like 10 years ago when we thought, oh, let's get a few broilers and feed them out so we can build this experience with our kids. Well, when I had the scalding water hot, like I got a big boiling pot, it was way too hot.
way too hot.
So, and you basically cook the outside of the chicken.
Oops.
You can't get that smell out of your nose when you go to cook the bird, and it still tasted like just melted, burnt, cooked feathers and skin and fat. Not good.
Yeah, no, yeah. We have accidents every once in a while. But if you ever really, I mean, if you're bored in the summertime and you want to come up and see how it goes, you're welcome to come on up anytime, and
Yeah.
we'll put a knife in your hand.
All right.
All of our listeners to volunteer if they'd like to. We want to get some experience in how to butcher chickens, and you can
And
use your
I mean that in somewhat seriousness. We do have some people that have come and they want to know how it's done, and we're like, all right, come on this day, and we'll show you how it's done, and you can take it home and learn that skill because it's a skill that I think you guys have talked about it before. It's a skill that not a lot of people know,
yeah. Yeah.
or even the idea of buying a whole bird and just cutting it up yourself.
Oh yeah.
You can
The
save
only
yourself
way
so much
people know how
money.
to cook it is yeah. People know how to cook a beer chicken on the grill, but otherwise people just don't buy whole chickens anymore.
We've got some customers we've over the years. I mean, I've been selling birds. I've been selling birds before my brother moved back here and we started Walker Farms LLC. I was telling birds, and I've got some customers that I've finally got on the train. They buy whole birds now, and I've shown them how to cut them up, and they're like, "Oh, this is the best way to do it." It's like, yeah,
That's fun. So how many of your birds are pre-sold when you're stocking for the year? Are those
usually none.
none,
We
really?
did when I was first doing it. I did pre-sale stuff, but now we've just gone to primarily. We just know kind of our number we need to have. Probably could do more. Some of it comes down to a labor standpoint. We only have so much between my brother and I both we all work off the farm. This isn't our full-time gig, so we only have so much time. And about 1,000 birds we figured out is about our limit, depending on weather and stuff. We have done more in the past, but it just gets to be a lot. So we've kind of said that's where we're going to be for a little while, and everything will moves pretty good. And I forgot to mention, we also have an on-farm store that's actually done quite well the last year and a half. It's a self-service store that you can come in and shop at and put your money in an envelope and walk out the door. I forgot to mention that.
So kind of a low tech or high tech scenario?
Low tech,
Yeah,
very
just like
low
a
tech.
an old honor system. Yep,
Yep,
you come in,
honor
you take a look.
system. It's amazing how much we do out of that little tiny. And it's I think the thing is 5 or 6 by 10. It's a tiny little building that we got out at the end of the driveway, and it's pretty crazy how much volume we do through that little thing.
Do you have a camera in there?
We have a Ring camera, but everyone always is like, "Oh, they're going to steal from you." And I guess the way I look at it, George and I kind of look at it is, if somebody needs it that bad, go for it. If you need that pound of hamburger because you can't afford it, uh, we make up for it with people that overpay because they don't have change or they don't have this or they just or accidentally do something wrong. It averages out.
It's
That's
amazing.
awesome. And then you also have an e-commerce site too, right?
Yep,
Your
we have a
website. You can
website.
buy.
Yep, you can buy right online and order. We have not ventured into shipping yet. We've been talking about it. It's one of those. Do you do? It's a hard one to swallow. Would be ready to do it. We did a little bit. We tried it a little bit when COVID was going on, and we didn't have success with the carriers that we were using. So we kind of stopped right away. We only shipped a couple things, and it's is that the road we want to go down? We're not. We're trying to see where we're going to go, which direction we're going this next couple years. Oh,
It seems to
So,
me if you go into shipping, and this is how I am too when I order things, which is not very often, but if I order something online, the thing about the shipping part is too is like you want it right away. Like if it ships, you're like, oh, this should be here to me in like 19 hours. In 19 hours, I should have this in my hand, right?
yep.
And then But that's because Amazon has set this precedence, right? In 2 day shipping and everything. But you, Andy Walker, you have a job and you have chickens and you have sows and you have feeder pigs and you have family, all these things. So you can't just get like a notification on your phone at like 4:30 that says you got to put a chicken in an overnight, UPS
Yep.
package, track them down and get it to someone 2 days later, right? So it's also kind of would seem like the expectation would be like you'd be constantly getting pinged and how would you set that standard? Where if you told people you're going to ship it to you, it's going to take a week, they'd probably be dissatisfied with the shipping arrangements. They'd be like, well, it shouldn't take that long, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, definitely. That's the struggle there. That time of doing it. When we did it in the past, it was always, well, you got to get the carriers to come out and pick it up too. So you can't, it just adds a whole other element of things at this time that we're doing pretty good with the farmers market and our local people, that we kind of put that one on the back burner at the moment.
Yeah. We don't even get UPS. Our UPS guy stopped here at the office, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? I don't know. After they settled their strike or whatever, they had to make some cost cutting. So we only get UPS packages 3 days a week now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday in our area, no matter
Wow.
how we ordered it. So if I first priority overnight air delivery something, it doesn't matter. If it was supposed to come on Tuesday, it's not going to come till Wednesday because they just aren't going to put the truck to our facility.
Wow.
And we live on a state highway, right? So it's not
That's
like we're like
crazy.
yeah. So anyway, it's like, yeah, like you added the dimension to that. It's like, okay, if we were trying to do shipping, we wouldn't even be able to get stuff on the road 5 days a week, 6 days a week, much less two people in the manner that they want.
Yeah. Never thought of that one.
You probably
So if
won't have
somebody
that
does
problem for
order
me
online,
20 minutes from Minneapolis. I think you'll be okay for a while.
yeah, right, you're that close. Are you running a route at all for deliveries into the Twin Cities, or how does?
We do run we have a designated route that we were doing every other week, and now I think we're down to every 3 weeks, I think is what it. My sister-in-law takes care of most of that side of things. Like, we would not be doing what we're doing without my sister-in-law's expertise with the website. And I mean, when you go to our website, my brother and I didn't do that. My sister-in-law, that was all her. That's she kind of manages that side of things, and we help where we can. And kudos. I mean, she's done a great job and much appreciated. But she does. We got deliveries next week, so if you put an order in, so there's a couple different ways, right? You can go online and you say put an order in for on-farm pickup. Well, those ones are pretty easy. We usually, we'll go over, put the order together, and we put it in the little store, and then they can come pick it up. When we send them an email, hey, your order's in the store, you can come pick it up. Or you can go to the store, you can go to the farmer's market. And then we have these deliveries, and we're trying to build up some drop site locations is really what I think we're trying to push more. We go to one spot, you come to us, get your stuff and go. But so if you put an order in and you say you want to do the Ramsey delivery route, you might not get that. If you put it in now, you'll get it on this coming Thursday was when we do the delivery. But if you put it on the Friday after, it might be 2 weeks before you're going to get it. So a lot of people look at that and they go, "Oh, I'll just drive up there and get it," because they can drive up and get it just as fast. If that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, it brings me back to like the Schwansman delivery service model, and I always thought like at some point that's just not going to work, right? Like even 10 years ago when fuel prices spiked, it was like, how is this really going to work? Are there enough people that are actually still ordering through it? But I think it's actually growing, and
They're all over the
with
place.
the they're all over the place, and their technology has gotten better. Ordering systems easier uh,
They
because
run
they've
on
made it.
propane.
It's
Yeah. The trucks are
yeah,
new. They finally
figure
upgraded the
things
old
out.
truck style. They're smaller, they're newer, they're
We actually
lighter,
have an old
but
Swans truck as one of our freezers. This old Swans truck.
Cool.
Yep.
That's
that's
awesome.
We
it's alive and
retrofitted it,
well.
and yeah, the thing's a great freezer.
I
It's
was
pretty
just
cool.
thinking the other day, like if you were gonna track, like if your goal was to try and get like a bioterrorism, like a new disease into like the cattle or hog supply in rural America, and you want to do it as fast as possible, like how can we like you know a bioterrorist is trying to like get the whole country to shut down their protein supply. Like I would like hitch a little dispensary on the Schwan's because that would get into rural America and the northern plains faster than any other delivery mechanism you can think of.
We used to get
Like,
it when I
don't
was a
we
kid.
don't have any bioterrorist listeners. If we are, apologize for the idea, but
We used to get
just
the
think
Swans
it's
when I was a kid. We don't get them anymore. I remember chasing them on a bike one time to try and get to him so he would stop at our house, and then my parents were like, "Oh man."
My parents did too. We did not. The Schwanzman went by, but my mom's kind of cheap, and she's like, "That stuff's overpriced. We're not buying that." So we just got to wave at him and go by.
I remember George. I think it was me and George. We chased him down with our bikes and said, "Come on over here." It's a long time ago.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Now you are the Schwanzman. Now you have an old Schwanz truck, a trailer, and now you're like a high end.
During COVID, we were. I mean, that was crazy. I mean, we were doing 25 stops, and then after
Wow.
COVID, that kind of came down a little bit. Kept our customers, and now we average about with the store and the farmers market. We didn't always do a farmers market. This is the second year we've done the farmers market now, and before we didn't even do the farmers market, so our only way was delivering. We were doing 20 deliveries every other week, 20 to 30. Now we're down to about 12, 11. We got our loyal customers that come every single time, but a lot of them have started to just come up to the farm store and get it because, like I said, they're not that far away. They can just drive up and grab it just as easy. And that's the best
That's
way.
great.
We love that because there's nothing, we don't have to do anything for the most part.
That's
So the last species we haven't talked about yet are the goats.
Now, let me do a full disclosure here. The goats are not Walker Farms. That is my mother's project. That is a
Mhm.
Goats on the Go project of hers that we ended up kind of helping with a little bit, but that's all her. That is nothing. You aren't going to go on Walker Farms website and find out anything about the goats. Just full disclosure.
Is it really called Goats on a Go?
Yep, she used they're out of Iowa, I think. They put up the website and then you go to Goats on the Go and then you put in your geographical area and then they send you to my mom if you're in the certain area and then she sends you a bid to do your goatscaping, as it's called.
Who are her clients, or who are the Goats on the Go's clients?
Anybody. They were downtown St. Paul cleaning up a spot. They were they were in my backyard, but I didn't pay for it. I got it done for free. You name it. There's people, anybody that wants to clean up something without using chemical. It's a great way to go, I think.
so. So you mean like it could be anywhere from like a overgrown woody brush site with
Yep.
rocks and junk everywhere, like an old tree grove, down to like in someone's just like lawn. They're like, hey, let's just try and like mow our lawn with the goats, or did not quite that.
The mowing the lawn one probably not so much because goats don't like the short stuff. Cleaning up the edge of your lawn and that kind of thing, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of buckthorn. The idea is they come in and they take care of buckthorn. Realistically, from what my parents have figured out, you almost got to have them come through 3 times. They come through, mow everything down, and then let it grow again, mow it down again. And by the third time, you can usually eliminate the buckthorn.
What's the normal duration? I mean, obviously it depends on the size, but like, do like the goats just come for the day? Like, do you rent them by the day? They
It
just show up.
depends on how big of a space. Like where they are now, they've actually been at the same spot for almost a month. But it
Good
was
job.
7 acres, and they only got 30 goats. So it takes a little while. You make your little paddocks, and they move along, and you want to leave them there, make them eat it, and that was that customer's. He wanted his whole entire spot, all of his underbrush and everything cleaned up. Then you get the guy. They went to a lady that was less than a day because it was only a half an acre and there wasn't that much there. So they dropped him off in the morning and came back and picked him up in the evening. And then they charge.
What's the minimum amount of goats
What's
that
that?
you could rent? What is the minimum amount of goats you could rent?
Oh, you could probably rent out 2, but it would just take forever.
Do you remember that during COVID when the Zoom meetings really escalated? People were renting out goats to be like with them during the Zoom call to make things more lively and stuff. And there's like goats to rent for parties and stuff. And
What?
Well,
yeah, that's a real thing.
there's a pizza joint north of here that we supply with some sausage and stuff. They do goat yoga all the time. You know,
With the sausage or
no,
with
with
the goats?
the goats. They go. You do goat yoga.
Wow.
You go out and do yoga, and you have goats climb on you while you're doing yoga.
And then you can get goat sausage after you're done.
Well, I always thought my dad and I were talking about it, like maybe we should do pig yoga. You know, do yoga out in the pig pen and have this big sow come up and start nudging.
Yeah. Yeah, like do a train people like this is how you can do a yoga on top of a pig, like a sow, like while you're AIing her, you get into it, make
Oh,
contact,
jeez.
do your stretches. Well,
Oh boy.
you gotta pat the sides, you gotta get into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have not done that. I've watched as people, AI sows, and like, yeah, you gotta put pressure on them, like you
I've,
gotta sit on them just right, and you know
I've
what I mean?
done
It's a
it.
thing. Not being
Yeah.
weird. It's like how it's done.
Now I did that for a while, and then we went to all that. Now we got boars because I'm not around enough to watch heats, so we just let the boys do it. No, the goat thing is
Um,
definitely it's interesting. I like I said, that's my mom's deal, so it's not. I don't know everything about it, but it's a venture that they wanted. She retired. She's like, oh, we're gonna do some goats. Oh, okay. Oh, and they get trained pretty good to eat stuff. I mean, when they first got them, they were pretty little, so they weren't getting very high. And now they're bigger and they're getting higher. They're eating better, and you kind of had to wean them. They came from a more conventional farm, so you had to wean them off some feed. And actually, you can eat this stuff that's out there. And now they just love it. I mean, it's fun to. My son loves going out and helping with the goats and watching them move. And yeah, it's they eat a lot of poison ivy, which we found out this year. And then Cohen would go out there and he was covered in poison ivy for most of the beginning of the summer.
oh, that's great. How are we gonna work the goats into the graze it, harvest it, rent it, Justin?
Okay, so I think that is, yeah, that's the one addition is that if you choose to graze one of these fields, it has to be by the landscaping goats.
Oh boy.
Okay,
You can have another
but you
podcast.
can
You can
harvest.
invite my mom on and have a whole conversation with her about goats if you want.
We just might.
The
We just
Walker
might.
family series.
Yeah. Okay, ready for the three fields?
Sure.
Remember, you have to choose to graze one with the goats, harvest it, however you want to harvest it for feed, which baling it or chopping it, whatever you choose. And then rent it out is just, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm going to let it go. Okay. All right. So graze it, harvest it, rent it. Jared, you got that jingle queued up yet?
We haven't got any further on that.
Dang
Sorry.
it. Gotta come. Okay, here it is. You got, oh, by the way, this was from our avid listener, good friend, David Larson submitted this one.
Okay.
Yep. So this is a good one, and it kind of fits with the diversity and up there in your area, Andy. Okay. So we got a field of field peas that was rejected by the canner for being too ripe and hail damaged. Then we've got a field of sweet corn that was rejected by the canner for being lodged and overripe. And we've got a field of sugar beets that was rejected by the co-op because of their tonnage quota.
Gosh.
So you got your field peas, your sweet corn, and your sugar beet field. All rejected because they got issues. So you got to choose to graze one, harvest it, or rent it out. Andy, you got to go first.
I gotta go first. I'm gonna go with the field peas. I'm gonna harvest the sweet corn. I'm gonna graze, and I'm gonna just rent the sugar beets. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the sugar beets.
Ah, okay.
Jared?
I think I'm gonna harvest the corn. I take that back. Harvest the sugar beets. Graze the field peas and rent out the corn.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna I'm gonna go ahead and harvest the sweet corn, graze the peas, and rent out the sugar beets. This one's tricky. Boy, there's a lot of different ways you could go
Yes,
with
there
this.
is.
But the goats, they have any issues grazing the peas or the sweet corn or ooh, boy, it sounds
I
like
have no idea
could
how they would do on. I'm just figuring they'd eat the corn pretty good.
yeah.
If we didn't have to put the
Well,
goats out there, I'd put pigs out there in it. But that's
I'm kind of figuring that the sugar beets can't really graze much out there with the goats. If you could use Andy's pigs, I was thinking maybe using the sugar beets.
For
But I
sure.
was thinking harvesting it and then just trying to like, process it, pile it, that kind of stuff, feed it, kind of like they would on the scrappings. It probably make some okay feed. But I didn't think I'd get any money out of renting it because it wouldn't bring any money. So I thought the easiest thing for me to talk neighbors into renting and using would have been um, would be the corn, the sweet corn, because it would be most similar to what they're already using, and then I could graze the peas. That's what I was thinking.
I was figuring
If sweet corn,
oh,
go ahead,
well,
Andy.
the sugar beets, I know nothing about harvesting sugar beets or anything to do with sugar beets. I want nothing to do with it. So that can be rented out to somebody somewhere.
That was my take on that too. If the sweet corn is too ripe, like let's say it's getting hard, what if you combine that? Or at what point could it actually be kept? Will it get down to 15% moisture? Does anybody know? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I guess.
It makes sense.
I don't know. Usually I look at
Like
them and
really work.
I also do crop insurance, and that's usually when I look at it and I say, no, okay, we're past, So I've never seen them go further than that. Usually they just plow them up or disc them up.
So that's what they will do with it if they don't actually
If they get
harvest
bypassed, a
it.
lot of times they'll just disc it up or throw cattle. If they got options to throw cows out there, they'll throw cows out there. But
Will people ever chop it?
sometimes, yeah, all depend. That's what I was looking at this going. All right, what around here? What do I have for means of doing things like sugar beets? Nobody around here can do anything with sugar beets. So I don't know who that guy was gonna, you know, figure I can get somebody to graze the sweet corn. Peter will take it. Somebody will do something with it, or I can. The field peas, I figure you harvest. You could chop that and make something.
Yeah, the peas, you've got some versatility with the options of making baleage or getting it dried down. You can make hay out of peas. Beautiful stuff. Good quality hay. Everything would like to eat that. The sugar beets one's tough.
Yeah.
If we could graze it with pigs, though, I think everybody would choose to graze that.
Oh, they would rip. They would love that.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet pork. You need to add some stuff for sour, but it'd be pre-sweetened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a different
Well,
one.
Andy, this is great. We really appreciate you joining us today, and thanks so much for the conversation and telling us more about what you've got going on. And invite everybody to visit the website, Walker Farms. Look up Walker Farms.
WalkerFarmsMN.com.
And your Facebook, what is that at, Andy?
Walker Farms MN, I believe. We've got Instagram, and we have a YouTube page that there's some pretty good videos on. I haven't made any lately of some of the stuff we're doing. And I'm on TikTok. Not that I want to claim that, but we are. I dabble with that a little bit. But, so
Fantastic.
I appreciate you
We
guys
appreciate
having me
it.
on too. When you emailed me earlier, I was like, oh, okay. That's what we're going to talk about. Sure.
No,
Yeah,
this fits in really well with a lot of our listeners as far as the diversity of things that you're doing and people using the land and their livestock together. So awesome conversation. Appreciate the time. If you've got more questions, follow-ups on this, or you want to submit a graze it, harvest it, rent it, email the roots and ruminants podcast at gmail.com. Our website is being built too, so we got a lot of contact information being built on it too. So we'll get this thing rocking and rolling. So appreciate it, Andy. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, see ya.